Walk down the meat aisle today and something feels off. The shelves are full, the colors bright, the packaging clean, yet somehow the meat itself feels distant. It used to come from a farm you could name. Now it's from a system you can't even picture. We still trust the same logos, the same promises, fresh, premium, handcrafted. But behind those words is a machine that never stops cutting corners. And most shoppers have no idea how deep that goes. What we're buying isn't always what we think. Water injected to look juicier, colors adjusted to look fresher, labels that sound honest but hide more than they reveal. So tonight, let's strip it back. We'll look at 5 major meat brands that aren't what they claim, and 2 that still respect the meaning of real meat. Because in the end, this isn't about fear, it's about trust and knowing what's really sitting on your plate. 1 Boar's Head. The store lights buzz long after closing. A young deli worker runs a rag over the slicer, tracing the same motion she's done 100 times. Stainless steel gleams. The hum of the refrigeration unit fills the silence. She scrolls her phone waiting for her ride. Then the alert pops up. Boar's Head recalls more than 200,000 pounds of deli meats for possible listeria contamination. She stops wiping. That's exactly what she sliced all day: turkey, ham, liverwurst, the same rolls stacked behind her, the same ones people asked for by name. It's a small moment, almost invisible, but that's how most food crises begin. Not with panic, but with habit colliding with truth. For generations, Boar's Head wasn't just another brand, it was the brand. It meant safety, taste, and something quietly old-fashioned: the logo, with the golden crest, the promise of premium since 1905. Parents told their kids to buy it because it's the real stuff. Grocery chains gave it the best counter space, and for a long time that trust was earned. But July 2024 changed that conversation. The USDA ordered a nationwide recall after inspectors found potential Listeria monocytogenes contamination in several Boar's Head products. Over 200,000 pounds of deli meat were pulled from shelves, and by then some had already been served in sandwiches across multiple states. The Centers for Disease Control later tied the incident to a multi-state outbreak with hospitalizations and even deaths. No one wants to think about that while making lunch. That's what makes it powerful. It wasn't supposed to happen here. Boar's Head symbolized the higher shelf, the safe zone, but as the investigation unfolded, it became clear a brand's polish doesn't make it immune to scale. Behind every premium logo today lies an industrial rhythm. Conveyor belts, rapid packaging temperature sensors, pallets loaded at dawn. A single missed reading one unchecked surface and the illusion of control shatters. The deli counter you trust isn't the origin. It's the last stop in a vast network. Older shoppers felt that shock deeper than most. Many remember when meat came wrapped in brown paper handed by a butcher who knew your name. They kept believing Boar's Head was the bridge to that past. The recall broke more than supply chains, it broke sentiment. And yet you can't just call it deception. It's not malicious, it's inertia. Heritage turned into habit, and habit forgot to ask questions. Boar's Head became so synonymous with reliability that even employees assumed quality didn't need verifying. Until one day it did. That's the quiet danger of legacy. When a name grows bigger than its process, vigilance fades. The confidence that built the brand starts working against it. It becomes harder to see cracks when everything looks polished. A local deli manager in Florida said it best after the recall: "You never expect your safest bet to be the risk." That line captures the moment perfectly. Because the lesson isn't about one company or one recall. It's about the space between what we buy and what we believe. Most of us don't read recall notices. We trust the counter clerk, the brand, the memory. We think risk belongs somewhere else, the cheaper aisle, the unfamiliar name. But bacteria doesn't care about labels or loyalty points. It only respects attention. So maybe the takeaway here is smaller. Next time you order that familiar roast beef, take a breath before saying the name. Look for date stamps, for handling notes, for signs that someone behind that counter is watching closely. Ask the questions your parents never had to. Because food safety today isn't a matter of trust passed down, it's awareness practiced daily. Boar's Head will recover. It probably already has. But for the people who once believed the gold crest meant peace of mind, The glow feels different now. To Tyson Foods, the hum of the deli counter fades, replaced by the roar of machines. If Boar's Head was the trusted face behind the glass, Tyson Foods is the system behind the curtain, the company that feeds half the nation. Before sunrise, one of its plants is already alive. Conveyor belts rattle, forklifts glide past steaming vents, and workers in white coats scan barcodes under harsh fluorescent light. It looks flawless mechanical precision, serving human hunger. Then a jolt in that rhythm. In late 2025, Tyson recalled nearly 58 million pounds of frozen corn dog and sausage products after wood fragments were found inside. Months earlier, it had pulled 16,000 pounds of ground beef for possible E. coli 0157H7 contamination. It wasn't the first time. Over the past decade, the brand has faced a line of similar alerts: metal pieces in nuggets, undeclared allergens, spoiled batches. No one company intends this. It's what happens when speed outruns oversight. Tyson grew from a small Arkansas poultry outfit in the 1930s into one of the world's largest meat suppliers. Scale brought efficiency and fragility. When you ship millions of meals a day, one missed temperature check becomes a nationwide headline. A former supervisor once said, "We're trained to keep the line moving even when it shouldn't." That sentence tells the whole story. In a system where profit depends on seconds, pausing feels like failure. And yet every recall starts with someone who didn't or couldn't stop the belt. The pattern isn't about villainy, it's about velocity. Machines don't tire, people do. But rest costs time and time costs money. So the line keeps running even when caution says otherwise. Behind each recall notice are real moments a worker double gloving. Because the sanitizer stings an inspector scrolling through hundreds of temperature logs, a mother opening a frozen bag of nuggets that looks perfectly fine until the news breaks later that week. That's the paradox of industrial food. The same system that feeds us so reliably also makes us numb to how fragile it is. We mistake abundance for safety when it's really just speed wearing a uniform. Tyson's recall history isn't unique. It's a mirror of the entire meat economy built on constant motion, just-in-time logistics, and razor-thin margins for error. The real question isn't why Tyson. It's how can any system this massive stay spotless forever? The factory hum returns. Steam hisses belts, clatter scanners beep. To the workers, it's another normal day. To the rest of us, it's the sound of a promise that's grown too big to control. So next time you see that red Tyson logo in the frozen aisle, remember what it represents. Not just convenience, but momentum. The meat may look perfect, the seal may hold tight, but somewhere in the chain, a single unseen flaw might already be moving towards someone's dinner table. Boar's Head showed how trust can fracture quietly at the counter. Tyson shows how an empire can wobble under its own weight. And somewhere between those two stories lies a truth most of us prefer not to face. The bigger the brand, the smaller the pause between safety and assumption. 3JBS USA. The trucks that left Tyson's gates don't stop at state lines. A few miles down the highway, the logos change red letters, now JBS USA. Different brand, same mission, move meat. Meet demand, keep the line alive. And in October 2018, that line broke wide open. JBS Tolleson, an Arizona arm of the world's largest meat processor, recalled nearly 7 million pounds of beef after a multi-state outbreak of Salmonella Newport. It became one of the biggest recalls in U.S. history. Hundreds sick, dozens hospitalized, all from meat that looked perfect past inspection and shipped right on schedule. That's what scale looks like when it falters. 7 million pounds. Thousands of boxes. Everyone stamped, sealed, and sent before anyone noticed the problem. The beef came from scattered feedlots processed in Arizona, distributed under multiple labels. By the time the alert went public, most of it was already eaten. JBS didn't just build a company, it built an ecosystem. From small beginnings in Brazil, it grew into a network of slaughterhouses and packing plants spanning 4 continents. In the US, its reach touches everything from grocery burgers to school lunches. You don't see its name, but you taste its reach. That invisibility is the power and the weakness. A contamination in one corner of that web becomes invisible until it spreads. Oversight thins across borders. Accountability gets translated into shipping codes. The recall exposed not just bacteria, but the distance between origin and ownership. A cafeteria manager in Texas said during the fallout, "We didn't even know who made our beef. The box just said, 'distributed by.' That's the whole story, distributed by." A phrase so ordinary it erases the people behind it. When food turns into freight, care becomes a line item. Inside a plant like JBS Tolleson, the rhythm never really stops. Forklifts beep. Hooks glide down tracks. A worker checks labels with a barcode gun that never runs out of battery. Somewhere up in the control room, an inspector watches a temperature graph slip 1 degree too low. He hesitates, then clicks, dismiss. The alarm quiets. The line moves on. Days later, headlines break. Boxes are traced backward, recalled destroyed. In the plant, the lights stay on. The workers still clock in. Another shipment loads. Night falls on the yard, the kind of dry Arizona dusk that paints everything orange. Trucks back up to the dock, engines idling trailers marked for Kansas, Chicago, New York. The drivers don't look up. They just check the manifest sign, the form pull away. From above, the highway looks like veins glowing under the skin of a nation that never stops eating. 7 million pounds of beef are gone, yet the traffic keeps moving, steady, relentless, familiar. The recall fades from the news. The line hums back to speed, and the silence that follows isn't a relief. It's the sound of a system too big to feel its own heartbeat. For Smithfield, how clean can a factory really be when it never sleeps? That's the question investigators asked in 2023 when Smithfield packaged meats recalled thousands of pounds of ready-to-eat bacon topping for possible metal contamination. The incident barely made national news, no panic, no viral outrage, just another voluntary recall notice filed and forgotten. Yet for anyone who's ever walked inside a plant like that, the question lingers, because clinically contamination doesn't appear out of nowhere. It happens when fatigue meets machinery, a loose screw from a grinder, a worn blade on a slicer, a vibration no one hears until it's too late. In theory, every Smithfield line has a foreign material detection point designed to catch fragments before packaging. In reality, the sensors catch most, not all. And most is what the modern food economy is built on. Smithfield Foods is the largest pork processor in the United States, producing billions of pounds of meat every year. Its promise is affordability. Its power is scale. And its pressure point lies right between the two. When your bacon sells for less than a cup of coffee, every cent counts. Every second matters. The math of cheap food demands precision without pause. Inside a processing plant at dawn, the air is cold and chemical. Workers stand shoulder to shoulder wearing earplugs and plastic aprons. Their hands move automatically, guided by conveyor rhythm, not thought. The goal isn't just productivity, it's sterility. Every surface wiped, every step sanitized. But sterility and exhaustion are natural enemies. The longer the shift, the slower the reaction time, the weaker the oversight. Smithfield's safety manuals read like medical documents, temperature thresholds, microbial swab protocols, HACCP checkpoints. On paper, it's flawless, but paper doesn't bleed. People do. And the truth is that a plant built for speed can only ever chase perfection, never hold it. The 2023 recall was officially labeled low risk. No confirmed injuries, no lawsuits. It slipped quietly through the news cycle the way routine failures often do. But inside the industry, inspectors noticed something subtler: fatigue in the field. A system doing everything right and still falling short. And it's not just about machines. Communities living near Smithfield plants in North Carolina and Missouri have filed complaints for years about waste lagoons and air pollution, symptoms of efficiency turned outward. The environmental side effects of cheap meat aren't as immediate as bacteria, but just as corrosive. The ammonia, the runoff, the smell, they settle into air and memory alike. That's the hidden cost of everyday low prices. The consumer saves at checkout. Someone else pays in vigilance and health in silence. A worker scrubs another surface, a neighbor shuts another window. There's a clinical beauty to how controlled these systems are: stainless steel corridors, coded workflows, digital temperature logs. But somewhere in that spotless design, a simple truth gets lost. You can't automate care. Safety isn't a machine, it's a human rhythm. Once it slips, no sensor can truly measure the consequence. When night shifts end, the plant empties into cold air. The workers hang their aprons, clock out, and step into a faint, sweet scent that floats over the parking lot: fried bacon from the test kitchen vents. It smells comforting, almost homey. But if you look closely, it's mixed with something sharper: disinfectant steam fatigue. The smell drifts over the small town nearby, where grocery stores open in a few hours to restock more bacon, sealed, sliced perfect. On the label, Smithfield, proudly made in the USA. 5 Hormel foods. On the kitchen counter, the can looks harmless. Blue label gold, rim a promise printed in small letters. Hearty. Home style, ready when you are. It's the kind of product that's been around forever, tucked into lunchboxes, camp packs, pantry shelves. Generations grew up with that logo. Spam Dinty, more Hormel chili, icons of survival and comfort. But in May 2025, the headline told a colder story. Hormel recalled 256,000 pounds of canned beef stew after inspectors discovered the possibility of foreign material contamination. A few months later, a second recall followed: 4.9 million pounds of frozen chicken pulled for potential metal fragments. No injuries reported, no panic in the stores. Just another quiet withdrawal, another line of fine print that most people would never read. The company handled it quickly, professionally. That's what big brands do: best efficiency after the fact. Yet the question lingers: how does metal end up in something labeled home style? Inside a Hormel plant home looks like stainless steel. Rows of pressure cookers, retorts, sterilize each can at 250 degrees. The process is precise, almost surgical. Every lot logged, every temperature recorded, every can coded with a timestamp that tracks its birth. The goal is microbiological certainty, not flavor. To guarantee shelf life, you sacrifice texture, nuance, and slowly humanity. The clinical success of canning was once an American miracle. During wars, depressions, long drives across empty states, those sealed cans meant safety. They fed soldiers, truckers, families waiting out hard winters. But what began as resilience turned into habit. Over time, the warmth of that story cooled into routine. The system kept producing long after the meaning leaked out. Ask anyone who's worked on the line, the hardest part isn't the heat, it's the monotony. The hiss of steam, the clang of lids, the echo of metal on metal. A worker once said it felt like listening to rain inside a tunnel. You stop tasting what you make. You just fill, seal, stack, repeat. In that monotony, precision becomes the only measure of pride. Every can sterilized for exactly the right number of seconds. Every pallet shrink-wrapped to perfection. Until one day a fragment from a machine breaks loose, too small for the eye, too sharp for error. Thousands of cans later, someone hears the ping of metal against the lid. Then comes the report, the recall, the relief that no one got hurt this time. It's not scandal, it's fatigue. The same fatigue that comes from doing something right so many times that you forget what right was supposed to feel like. And maybe that's what Hormel's story is now: not failure, but numbness. The food still fills you. It still sells. But the trust that once came from care has been replaced by control. Safety is now a number on a chart. Hearty is a word in a marketing brief. Even so, people keep buying it. Not because it's great, but because it's there. Because it reminds them of simpler times: the smell of lunch in a factory town, the click of a can opener echoing through a small kitchen. At dinner, a man heats a bowl of beef stew in the microwave. He stands by the counter watching it spin under the pale light. When it's done, he taps the lid into the sink, a hollow metallic sound, and stirs. The taste is fine. The warmth is there. But it's comfort manufactured, not shared. In the distance, a freight train passes carrying more cans toward more shelves. The same hum, the same promise, the same silence. The aisle doesn't really end, it just changes tone. Past the bright packaging and familiar logos, the shelves grow plainer. Fewer slogans, shorter ingredient lists. You start noticing prices a bit higher, but the air feels calmer. These brands don't shout about fresh or premium. They just show up clean and honest. Not everyone cut corners for speed or scale. Some still work smaller, buy from real farms, and keep their food close to where it's made. After so many recalls and empty claims, that feels different, not fancy, just steady. Like food meant to be trusted, not marketed. 6 Applegate Farms. After miles of processed noise, Applegate feels almost old-fashioned. No holographic packaging, no new recipe stickers, just a brown paper label and a claim that sounds too simple to be marketing natural meat. Humanely raised, no antibiotics ever, and yet for once the words match the work. Founded in 1987, Applegate Farms built its name on a stubborn belief that clean meat shouldn't be a niche, it should be normal. Long before organic became a supermarket buzzword, Applegate began sourcing from small family farms across the Midwest, where livestock actually saw sunlight and ate grass instead of feed-grade powder. That decision slowed growth. It made production harder, but it also kept control where it belonged on the farm, not in the factory. While big companies chased speed, Applegate focused on consistency. Its turkey bacon and deli meats come from animals raised without antibiotics or synthetic hormones. Every supplier signs what they call a standards of care agreement, outlining feed handling and welfare requirements that get verified, not assumed. It's not perfect, no system feeding millions ever is, but it's measurable, transparent. You can trace the line from shelf to soil. Walk into one of Applegate's partner farms in Iowa or Wisconsin, and it doesn't feel like a commercial set. There's mud, there's noise, there's life. A farmer opens the barn door and the smell isn't chemical, it's real. Hay, manure, morning air. The kind of mix that reminds you food doesn't begin under fluorescent light. The difference shows under a microscope, too. Independent testing on Applegate deli meats in 2023 found antibiotic residues to be below detectable levels, far cleaner than most industrial counterparts. And while its products still go through USDA processing plants, the supply chain remains intentionally tight. The shorter the chain, the smaller the risk. That's what separates natural from marketed as natural. Most brands use the word as seasoning. Applegate treats it as a system. They don't sell perfection, they sell process. And consumers feel that difference. You don't need a nutrition degree to taste when meat cooks cleaner, when bacon leaves less residue in the pan, when ham smells like ham instead of packaging. Of course the price is higher. A pound of Applegate turkey costs about twice what its industrial counterpart does. But that extra few dollars doesn't buy luxury, it buys clarity. You're paying for work done slower, closer, and with fewer shortcuts. For many, that's not indulgence, it's insurance. What's striking is how calm the brand feels in a market addicted to noise. No celebrity chef, no limited edition, no false urgency, just an open-door policy and a website that lists every farm partner by name. In an industry where marketing often leads and truth follows, that kind of plainness feels almost radical. Toward the end of one tour, a farmhand was asked how Applegate compares to bigger buyers. He shrugged and said, "They call less, but they listen more." That's the difference right there, not in slogans or labels, but in how silence gets used. For some companies, silence hides. For Applegate, silence means nothing needs hiding. 7 Butcher Box. For decades, we were told the system works. Supermarkets were full prices, steady labels reassuring. Then the recalls came one after another, and the silence started to sound louder than the promises. Somewhere between frozen aisles and factory floors, people began asking the oldest question again. Where does my meat actually come from? That's where Butcher Box found its footing, not in novelty, but in honesty. Started in 2015 as a small subscription service out of Boston, it built its name on a simple act of restoration, bringing clean, humanely raised meat straight to households, without the layers of middlemen that blur accountability. Every cut has a story. Grass-fed beef from family ranches in the Midwest heritage pork, from sustainable farms free-range chicken, raised without antibiotics. Each supplier is audited, not assumed, and every shipment includes a traceable origin. The idea isn't luxury, it's literacy. The company believes consumers shouldn't have to guess what 100% beef means anymore. Inside their distribution centers, you won't find giant production lines or artificial freshness tunnels. The atmosphere feels more like logistics than manufacturing, slower, measured, deliberate. Pallets are packed by hand boxes insulated with compostable material. No giant retail lighting, no plastic shine. The focus is on what the customer will read later, the source. And that transparency pays off. Independent testing in 2024 confirmed ButcherBox beef to contain 0 detectable antibiotic residues and lower overall microbial load compared to most supermarket equivalents. Even USDA audits, notoriously rigid, rated the brand's suppliers among the top percentile for humane handling and cleanliness. Still, ButcherBox doesn't market itself like a crusade. There are no moral lectures, no guilt in the tagline. Just straightforward messaging: pay farmers fairly, raise animals right, and deliver what's promised. That simplicity feels almost rebellious in an industry that thrives on confusion. While others print natural in bold letters, ButcherBox quietly shows receipts, exact farm names, animal diets, even third-party certification numbers. Of course it costs more. Transparency always does. But for many families, that extra few dollars per pound isn't extravagance, it's insurance. It buys distance from industrial shortcuts from the long chain of blind trust that broke years ago. A rancher from Montana who supplies ButcherBox once said in an interview, "They don't want the cheapest meat, they want the truest." That line captures the difference. The brand isn't trying to change how meat looks, it's trying to remind people what it feels like when you know where it came from. At a glance, a ButcherBox delivery looks unremarkable, a brown box, plain typeface, frozen packs inside. But the quiet is the point. It's not a promise of perfection, it's a sign of focus. In a world where beef became a brand and fresh became a formula, ButcherBox's plainness feels radical. It doesn't need a jingle, a mascot, or a spotlight. Just trust packed, sealed, and shipped the old-fashioned way by hand from someone who still signs their name on the invoice. Late in the evening, a delivery truck hums through a quiet suburb. The driver sets a box on the porch, wipes the frost from the label, and walks away. Inside, someone opens the lid, touches the solid, cold pack of meat, and exhales not in awe, but in relief. After so many shortcuts, this one finally feels straight. We began in the aisles of comfort, bright lights, trusted names, easy choices. And one by one, those names told us a story we didn't expect. Not of villains, but of systems stretched thin. Not of danger, but of distance. Boar's Head, Tyson. JBS Smithfield, Hormel. Each showed how good intentions can fade under pressure, how progress can quietly trade places with fatigue. But the aisle didn't end there. Because honesty didn't vanish, it just moved to smaller labels, quieter shelves, steadier hands. Brands like Applegate and ButcherBox prove that integrity can still survive scale, that real meat doesn't need marketing tricks to taste like trust. In the end, awareness is the real ingredient. It costs nothing, changes everything, and turns a simple act, choosing what to eat, into a quiet stand for something better.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.